Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris. We have a very special podcast for all of you today. Technically, yesterday was our 34th wedding anniversary. And the nicest thing you could say right now, having said that, is wow, you guys have been married for 34 years. So, assuming you're all saying that, this is where I tell my usual joke. Oh, no, we've been married for 34 years, but not to each other. Julie's on her sixth wedding and her sixth marriage, and I'm on my fourth, you know. But that isn't true, of course. We've been
So
married.
you're trying to make it a joke that it's cumulative. Ha
Right,
ha ha.
exactly. I
Yeah.
try. So when we're in public settings and people talk about marriages, we usually keep our mouths shut because when we say 34 years, people always like overreact. And so when forced to answer the question, how long have you been married? Or if it, creates social awkwardness, I'll say 34 and then the truth. And then I'll throw in the not to each other thing and it usually makes people laugh. So anyway, there you go. Hopefully you laugh from that. But yes, she and I have been married for 34 years as of yesterday. And what we wanted to do today is not necessarily celebrate our anniversary with all of you. What we want to do is show our gratitude to all of you on our anniversary. So bear with us on today's podcast. We do have some notes, of course, some things that we wanted to share with you and talk about. But really, from the bottom of both of our hearts, where we are today in life, where we are today in our marriage and our family, professionally speaking, is in a large part because all of you like what we do. That's really the bottom line.
True.
You like what we have to say. You like how we say it. You like the people. And a lot of you have been with Julie and I for literally decades. Some of our coaching clients have been with us for decades. And so, where we are in life is because you have been receptive to what we have to offer. In other words, our highest and truest purpose on this planet, we know, is to be of service to other people. And the people we've chosen to be of service to are all of you. And we really appreciate we're in just massive gratitude. So that's what today's show is. It's yes, celebrating our anniversary. So Julie, I love you. Happy anniversary.
Love you too, and happy anniversary.
And so some of you have come to us in the last, say, 6 months, 12 months, even 3 years, and you don't really know much about us. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about our foundation, like where it all started, because it's important in that you understand that when you're gathering information or you're looking for guidance or you're looking for coaching and training or just even casual advice, you have to really qualify who you're taking that information from. And I know I'm sort of sounding a little vampish right now, but I'm only saying that on Instagram. You guys should check us out on Instagram, Tim and Julie Harris. Somebody shared a video with us, which I frankly think is one of the coolest real estate videos I've ever seen. It's a guy sort of, I don't know, doing a parody on usual real estate agent social media, but you guys got to watch it because it's so in perfect alignment with what Julie and I have been saying for the last forever about, essentially when you're pursuing greatness in your own life with what you can offer to other people, don't try to make yourself famous. Try to make the results you get for other people famous. Or put another way, just to frame out where I'm hoping you guys, follow with us on today's show. If you're pursuing fame, you might find it on social media, but you won't find anything else and it'll be fleeting. If you're pursuing being of service to other people, everything's going to follow from that. That's always been our approach. That's always been our mindset, even from the beginning, even when we got into real estate. And so let's talk about that, Julie. So let's talk about how it
Sure.
all started. We met in high school.
Yes, I was 15 and you were 16, so I was a sophomore and you were a junior. We met in world history class. We went to an alternative high school, which, could be construed as many different things, but basically it was kind of like a combination creative college prep, I don't know how you would define it these days,
Well,
but that's why it was world history and it was a game. I was Mexico, you were Yugoslavia, when Yugoslavia was a country. And it was basically learning how to trade. We were learning economics and we had to trade with each other, and that's how we ran into each other.
well, Yugoslavia is a country you met before it was you were referring to back when it was part of the
Or you
USSR.
were something. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
some other different
Yeah.
name, but yeah.
But by the way, the high school we went into, there was two extremes. There were basically people that the main school didn't know what to do with, so they stuck them in the AP high school we were in. And then they're like really, really smart people. So Julie and I were sort of in the middle.
Yeah.
That's the best way of describing it. So
It
we
was a
found
great
each
school,
other.
though. It was really fun. It was very small. Everybody knew each other. Teachers were pretty cool. You had a lot of freedom, but I feel like we got a pretty good education. But anyway, that aside, that's where we met. And we started hanging out together and we're friends first. We went on walks because we were allowed to be free range from the school for during lunch and breaks and things like that. And then, we went to homecoming and prom together. And since you were a year ahead of me, you graduated first, of course, and you were off to Ashland University.
Great. I had
And
a
that,
scholarship
yeah.
to Ashland, but in the video, I want to show you guys something that's kind of funny.
Oh
So
no, I don't know
I
about
have,
this.
yeah. Well, I'm a car nerd, and one
Oh
of the
yeah.
car, and when Julie and I went to our high schools and proms that she just mentioned, we would always take my dad's Triumph TR3. And so hopefully my editor is going to drop the picture of the Triumph TR3 that we just found in Oregon and we bought as an anniversary present. So the hopefully the
Hmm.
green car you guys are seeing right now, that is the car that she and I bought for each other as our 34th wedding anniversary. Don't worry, it's not some crazy ass expensive exotic something or another. It's just
No,
some.
it's a fun little historic British convertible, essentially, for people who don't know what a TR2 is. So,
Yeah, TR2. Sorry, you're right. So we took dad's TR3, but we went that in high school, but we couldn't find a nice TR3, so we bought a TR2. It doesn't matter. But the moral of the story is that is what it looked like. It was as crazy as that. And Julie would jump into that car with her hair all done up and her nice dresses and the whole thing. And this little freaking roller skate with literally, and we're not tall people, but you could if you put your elbow out like this, your elbow would practically touch the ground. So when you
yeah,
see the scallop doors and the design and everything, that is really what it looked like.
very cute, cool, fun car. Yeah.
God bless her parents for letting me take her out in that car because I'm not sure if Zoe came home some kid came to the house with a car like that, I would let her go out with him, but I'm pretty sure I
Exactly.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Julie and I dated through high school, dated through college. I went to college. I came back. We ended up going to Ohio State University together. And then I'll tell you what happened. We had so we got it done with college, and this will maybe surprise some of you, maybe it won't. Neither one of us graduated from college, which is kind of the thing to do nowadays. You go or you don't go, but whatever you do, you don't graduate. And we started a business. And the business we started we had this business going on, but then we started to build the business. And I'll tell you the story that happened. So back when Julie and I were in high school, and then when we got into college, I had a car cleaning. The business didn't work when I went to Ashland because it was an hour and a half away. But we had a car cleaning and detailing business, and this car cleaning and detailing business was built on proactive lead generation. So what she and I would do, we started doing this really when we were both like sophomores in college. I was a sophomore. She was anyway when we were in college.
We
But
were
we would
20. Well, okay. So meanwhile, we got married when we were 20 and
Oh yeah,
21.
yeah. We got married when we were 20 and 21. Thank you. I
Yeah.
forgot that part. Yeah, we got married when we were 20 and 21. We were so broke. So I want you to picture this little cute white church is a Presbyterian church, right? Was it Presbyterian
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
Methodist? Okay.
Mhm.
And there was this little cute church. It was from like the 1800s. If I get any
Historic
details,
in
yeah,
Liberty, Ohio. Yep.
Liberty, Ohio. And then and we weren't members of the church, but we loved the church. And then there was this, graveyard from, historic graveyard that was right beside it. So if you had to pay the pastor $50, I think, or $250, I don't remember. And you got to have your wedding inside the church. And if you didn't have the money to pay the pastor, this is the truth. You had to have your wedding outside of the church. Well, we got married in September 15th, and September 15th in 1991, it happened to be hotter than hell. And
It's
guess what?
usually, I mean, we chose that date because it's usually absolutely beautiful in September in Ohio with crisp blue skies. It's just barely fall, but we hit the jackpot. It was like 95 degrees that day. Also, you're about to say we ended up getting married outside because it was less expensive. We did not get married in the graveyard outside, which is what
No,
you just kind of
but the
rambled enough to
graveyard
think.
was so we were getting married here.
Adjacent.
Here
Yeah.
was the church. Over here was the graveyard.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We didn't have the money to get married inside the church. And
Also, I wasn't old enough to drink.
yeah, Julie, well, that made it for it. Julie was always, so I'll tell you guys a
Cheaper.
secret about Julie. She was always, the perfect girlfriend in high school and college because she's allergic to roses. So I had
Yes, deathly allergic.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to high school. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna go back. So like I said, we're just vamping.
Rewind the way back machine a little more.
All right, we're
Yeah.
gonna go back. I'm gonna tell you guys a true story. So there was a high school, I think it was a homecoming coming up. And Julie was the hot new thing at this little nerd camp, a new nerd school, this AP school we went to. And every, kid, every guy was interested in Julie. And there's one in particular named Damon. And Damon, I hope you're not watching this, but because I still feel kind of sorry for this, but not really. So Damon wanted to ask her to homecoming. I wanted to ask her to homecoming. We were becoming really good friends. Had more in common with her. Damon was a band nerd.
Musician,
He was a
violin,
musician. He was that violin. They knew each other from these band.
music stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I figured, well, I have to fight like hell because he's got the inside track. And this was really a competition. And so I found out from her friend Jill. So high school prom was coming up, and I found homecoming, and I found out from her friend Jill that Julie was really allergic to roses. And so that's great. I'm a poor kid. I can't afford roses anyway. So it turns out she's not allergic to carnations. She's like allergic in Ohio. She was allergic to every damn thing except carnations. And I found that out from her friend. Well, Damon, he wasn't a rich kid, but he certainly had more money than my family. My family never had any money. And he was able to put together his money and bought her a mass. How many roses were there?
It was like 2 dozen,
Yeah,
which
two
would have
dozen
killed me
roses.
had they been in the house. Yeah.
Yeah. So he sent those to you prior to homecoming, trying to basically
This
like,
was all like within the same week or so.
so
Because I had said yes to either one of you, I think.
so he was lobbying you.
Yeah, he was kind of overkilling.
Yeah, he wanted to basically hit it out of the park. Well, so those flowers couldn't even go near the house, let alone in the house. So what did you guys do with those, by the way? I never asked.
I think we gave them to a neighbor or something. I don't know. I think he was also trying to impress my dad because he was kind of a science nerd too, and my dad was a science teacher at the high school. So that was kind of probably related to, excuse me.
Let's
But
just be let's
yeah.
just be perfectly clear. Julie's parents definitely prefer Damon over me. No doubt. And now that I'm a dad of a little girl, I definitely understand. I mean, Damon was more like Julie, who was more like them than I certainly was. So just for the record,
That's probably
I,
true.
I
Yeah.
would, I, you know, like I said, that was what I remember. So anyway, I delivered these carnations. She enjoyed the carnations. She really, and since,
I loved them. They're beautiful. And they
yeah,
also didn't kill me.
yeah. And so you said yes to me,
Yep.
and
That's
we,
right. And we had I think that was probably our first homecoming because following ones, you didn't have to send me anything. We were just going. But, and then we went out in the TR, and that was, kind of the beginning of us dating, so to speak, which led us getting married fairly quickly after high school when I was 20 and you were 21. And through that, you and I were working, like I was working in retail, and I think you were starting to detail cars and stuff like that, but the business hadn't been created yet.
you're forgetting a funny story.
Which
You,
one?
you just said
There's so
working
many.
in retail.
Oh, my elf story, I'm sure.
Well, tell the story.
Okay. So
No, and listen, don't skip any of the details about the sparklies.
Okay, well, so basically, the long and short of it was there was an all year round Christmas store that was very close to where we lived because, I mean, we're talking about a long time ago. I had only been driving for like, 2 years, so I wasn't going to go that far. And there's a cute little town called Old Worthington, which I still love to visit, with an all year round Christmas store. So I got a job as an all year round Christmas elf. I was the kid that would go up the 20-foot Christmas tree on the 20-foot ladder and this was like a nice Christmas store. There's Christopher Radko ornaments and like collectibles and all kinds of stuff. And so we would have all these collectors. Sometimes they'd even fly in from places and they'd be like, I want to have this collectible ornament, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, inevitably, it was the one that you'd take like binoculars to see at the very top of this huge tree that was like our signature thing. So all day long, I would scurry up and down the tree. I would be the one that went to get the boxes and check them out and all the different, little retail elfie jobs. But anyway, I think the story that you're aiming for is when I would come home. This is when I got the job in high school, and
I'm
I
waiting.
worked there for
I'm
like
waiting.
6 or 7 years. I worked there when we were married too.
I'm waiting to hear if she's actually going to say the funny part of the story because I've heard
What's
her tell
funnier
this.
to you?
Well, it is funnier to me, but I bet you she won't. So if she doesn't, I'm going to tell you the funny part.
Oh,
Go
that I
ahead.
would come home covered in glitter.
Yes, and it would never wash off.
No, that was a lot of serious glitter. Yeah.
She would be covered literally, guys, from stem to stern with
And
glitter.
what was funny is I mean, it's an all year round Christmas store. So I'd be covered in glitter in mid-July,
And that stuff sticks. I don't know if you've
I
had,
probably still have some of it on me. I don't know.
you probably have ingested it. They'll find it,
Probably
a
why I have this
thousand years.
cough. Yeah.
But the funny part is that we were out once and somebody saw the glitter on Julie and leaped to the conclusions that she was a stripper because
I must have a reason for this glitter at this time of
exactly
year.
that was the
Could not
funny
be further from the
part.
truth, people. But yeah.
Yeah, the real
So
the truth wasn't as nearly as interesting. All right, so now we're going to jump back and
anyway, yeah.
so
So
we
meanwhile, at some point, you and I realized that I wasn't going to be a career elf, and you weren't going to. We wanted to build a business together. So our first, and I think you had started it before I kind of joined it. I was still working, teaching piano and being an elf. But you can take it from there.
Well, so we bought our first house when we were barely 21 and 22. We were like 22 and 23 in there, just turning
Early 90s. Yep.
early 90s. We bought our first house, did our first real estate deal, and it was a terrible transaction. It was a
Yes.
dual agency, and this is another
It was
Julie.
a recent flip, which we barely even knew what that meant back then.
Right. And so Julie was in the shower like the first night, morning, woke up, took a shower, leaned her hand against this window in the shower, and basically the whole window basically fell out because they did put a new window in, but all the wood around it was rotten. And we
This was
thought,
like a 1946 house, so it had all the original old woodwork. So yeah, it had a nice, beautiful. You walk in the open house, you're like, oh, that's a beautiful, nice glass block window. It must be rehabbed. And then you own the house, and you start noticing the details. This was
right.
like beginning real estate knowledge for us.
Well, so we ended up, saying, well, if we can certainly do a better job than this real estate agent than she did, and that sparked our interest in real estate. We're skipping some other steps, some fun stories. I'm going to digress ever so slightly.
Okay.
So why did we never graduate from college? All right, this is a true story. So we were again poor in college, but not so, but I had to take on some student loan debt, and she took on a little bit of student loan debt after we got married. Because when we came home from our honeymoon, and I'm glad her parents did this, so I'm not complaining. They literally had all of her stuff sitting on the porch, and her dad was like, "Not paying for college anymore. She's yours. Good luck."
Yeah. Good luck.
Which was the right thing to do,
I
honestly.
know.
Yeah. So we went to the detailing business. Julie and I would go out every single Friday, Saturday, and we would put flyers, which were these little, essentially they're different
Like an
sizes, but
invitation card.
yeah, that's what it was. So it's a nice looking invitation card. And we would go to restaurants and nice places every single night. And we did this all throughout the year. If it was raining, we wouldn't go. But other than that, we went everywhere where people with nice cars would go. And so if you can imagine a parking lot with 100 cars in it or whatever, we would go and stick these invitations to do business with, it was called the auto spa, is also called the executive service. And so we would proactively go out and prospect directly the people that we wanted to do business with because we were kids, but we weren't dumb. We knew that if someone had a really nice 560 SL, for sure, they had at least two other cars.
This
That's a
is
good
how I
thing.
learned my cars, by the way, because you taught me this. This is very basic direct marketing. It's kind of like the car cleaning and detailing business version of door knocking in a sense, only cars. And you were like, well, don't just flyer every car. These are the cars that you want to target because somebody that owns something like you just mentioned, a nice Mercedes, probably that's not their only car. Their spouse probably has a nice car. Maybe they got another driver car or a fun car. So that was smart marketing back then.
Well, no one taught us this. It just seemed like common sense to me, to be honest.
Logic.
Right.
Mhm.
So we knew that if someone had one nice car, they had at least another one and maybe three. And that is indeed what happened. And we didn't want to frankly, we didn't want to be doing business with people that couldn't afford to pay us. Makes sense, right? We didn't want to do business with people that only wanted to do business with us once and never hear from them again or have to continue to market to go after them again. You guys understanding how all this kind of carries
That's right.
forward?
So we would fly our Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes, all the usual culprits, and that's how the business started. And of course, those people tended to be networking with friends that were similar to them or in their same businesses, or we had some medical practices where they would share our information. And so one detail became several details, and then that became a relationship, and we got repeat and referral business down the line.
She's fast forwarding, but that's exactly what I was trying to say. So what we eventually did is we got to the point where our business, we had enough regular customers and I just thought, you guys probably don't remember this, but you used to go get your oil changed. And when you got your oil changed, there'd be a little static sticker that they put on the windshield saying next time you're supposed to have your oil changed is 6 months from now. And I thought, well, that was a great idea. I'm just
Yeah.
going to put a static sticker up top of their windshield that says next time you're supposed to have your car detailed, it's 90 days from now. And we did. And guess what happened? Is I would call them. This was like, everything was done manually because we did not have a big client base. We didn't need one. One customer typically equaled three cars, and all three cars back then would be probably like 450 or $500. Okay. That's how much we charge. Nowadays, detailing is a hell of a lot more.
Mhm.
You can, for what we are doing in a detail nowadays, people will charge $700, $800 easily in any event. So that's what we did. And so we would then have it. So throughout the year, I would simply call people at the end of the previous month, and I'd say your car is scheduled for detail on the third week. I'll be picking it up this time. The same exact routine of whatever I did to
Mhm.
get last time, and I would always go and I'd always clean up and look nice because I knew I'd be walking a lot of times into professional offices and other environments. And then I would take the car back, and then eventually I had three guys who would help me clean the detail and detail the cars, and then I would personally deliver the car back to the customer. I was driving all these cars, like, driving all these really cool cars, which was awesome. They just give me the keys, wouldn't think about it. Why were they trusting me? Because I sounded professional. I knew about the cars, the
Showed
help.
up on time, you followed up, you had the static thing that, we ran it like a business.
But I had social proof too, because I was detailing cars for people that they knew. So Julie and I, 1 year when we realized what we were doing was working, is we made a list of all the most influential people in Columbus, Ohio. And then we went after those people. We would specifically target those people. And we ended up with Les Wexner's cars. We ended up working for a lot of the guys that were members of the YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization. And we had, without a doubt, we had, the most powerful families in Columbus. We would work directly for them and we detail their cars. And we still would do the occasional flyering, but we didn't have to anymore because the business just basically spread
Word
like
of mouth,
wildfire.
essentially.
Right. So fast forward, how did we get into real estate? The business was going great. We went to and this is while we were still in college, by the way. This is when we were going to Ohio State. And I was having problems, balancing all this crap. And Julie and I, get this, we were so freaking poor when we got married. Both in 4 years of us getting married, we were netting. And guys, this was back in the early 90s. Oh, netting over $100,000 per year.
But not the first year. We were broke, broke, broke. I remember my grocery budget. One of the times we moved, I found our grocery budget was like $13 a week. And when we joke on the podcast about, maybe you don't want to eat ramen noodles for the rest of your life, that's because we know what it's like to eat ramen noodles. I used to buy those things because they were 10 packets for $1. Okay. And if we were doing really well the next week, I would have Campbell's soup instead of ramen noodles. So yeah, we get it. But that didn't last long because
No,
we
it
were very
didn't.
motivated. And we knew, I think, we're celebrating our anniversary. And I have to say, looking back, one of the things that I do appreciate about our relationship, our marriage, our businesses is that we never were like trying it out. We always thought, we don't want to be poor. We want to do things in life. We want to go fun places and we want to upgrade our lifestyle and we want to be successful. It wasn't like, well, let's try out a detail business. It was like, let's make this thing work.
Well, so
And that's why we weren't broke for that long.
no, and we didn't rent for that long, Julie. When you and I got
No,
married, how long did we even rent for a
we
year?
only rented for 2 years on High Street and then Plant Drive.
Were they full 12 months though? I don't know. High Street wasn't, we
I think
moved,
High Street wasn't, and then Plant Drive, maybe we did
right. I
1 year.
think that's right. So in any
Maybe
event,
not even. Yeah,
right. I remember when we first got our first house, it was 280 East Jeffrey. By the way, Jules, if that ever comes for sale, we should buy it.
we will. I
But
watched for it too.
yeah, me too. But the interest rate was 7% and people were congratulating us.
Well, there's a story in that too. It's like, now, oh my gosh, it's 7%. Who would want to pay that? At the time, in the early 90s, both our parents were, and everybody else we knew were like, wow, if you can get a house, you really should because it's down to 7%. If you can lock that in, you're going to be doing great.
Yep, that's true.
And they were right. They were right. But the house was about that big. I'm pretty sure the garage was bigger than the house, but it was in a cute street in a cute neighborhood, and we weren't renting.
Correct. And so we go to this, it wasn't a TA at Ohio State, or it was a TA at Ohio State. It was an English TA, if I remember correctly, right?
Mhm.
Really nice guy. And we went to him and I just asked him for advice. And he was just a kid, maybe a few years older than us. Well, maybe more than 10, I suppose. But so I asked him, I sat down and I said, this is the challenge that we have. We're married, da, 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 da. And he was really nice and respectful and always, I remember him very fondly. So anyway, I'm going and telling him about this detailing business. He's sort of half paying attention, wondering why the hell we're telling him all this shit. And then I tell him about the money that we're making. And I'll never forget what his reaction was. And remember, this is somebody that was on the education track. He wanted to get his PhD and blah, 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 blah. He just dropped his shit. And he looks at me and goes, why the hell are you guys in college? That was the essence of what he said.
Yep.
He said, why are you in college? He said, you've created something that people go to college to hope one day have. You've already got it. And I was like, this was what I was looking for. I was looking for permission to actually pursue
a nudge, basically.
Well, what we knew was right, but everyone else was telling us, no, you got to stay in college. I mean, Julie's family's her sister's got 2 MBAs and a PhD, and her her family's so everyone was telling us to follow that educational path, but we were looking to see where we wanted to go in our lives. And we knew what we wanted.
And we wanted to go there faster too.
Yeah. I mean, why wait 20 or 30 years? Why wait? Everyone was saying, oh, you got to wait your turn. People have been telling us this shit forever.
Just do your time.
You don't get married when you're in 2021. You don't buy your house when you're 22 and 23. You don't earn that much money from a detailing business when you're just kids. That crap we've been hearing forever. you don't marry your high school sweetheart, right? All this stuff. And we ignored it and we ignored it and we ignored it.
Mm.
And we were right because we ended up dropping out of college. And our first year in real estate, drum roll, first full year in real estate, I want to edit that because we got licensed mid-year 1 year. And then our first full year in real estate, we sold over 100 houses. And I'm going to say that we sold 103, but they didn't all close. So we sold 100 houses. Now I want to be really clear. All we did was basically scaled up what we were doing in the detailing business because we learned how to proactively lead generate and we learned how to take really good care of customers. We learned how to present, we learned how to network, and we learned how to, frankly, just do the best job we possibly could and blow people away. Under promise, overperform constantly. That's what we did. Yes.
Let me form the bridge from pursuing the detail business because you kind of glazed over how we got into real estate. Okay. So the detail business was doing great for a while. That was better than being a poor college kid and getting into a bunch of more debt than we already had from school.
You're saying, why'd we get out of it?
Yeah. So I want to tell
the Jack Rosselli story if you're going to say it.
The Jack Rosselli story and also the JP story.
Go for it.
And our closing on our own house. So meanwhile, while you were having your discussion with the TA at OSU, who was like, why are you even bothering with college when you're already making this kind of money? Meanwhile, we had closed on our house where the agent, it was a terrible experience beginning to end. The agent had both sides of it. I remember that the day before closing, like nobody wanted to do a walkthrough with us. She actually said, well, you don't have to do an inspection, just to have one of your dads walk through, which is why the window fell out because we didn't know that you were supposed to inspect a house back then. We weren't in real estate then. We were just kids that didn't want to rent, And so I remember she didn't even think we were going to close because she didn't understand what the detail business was. And I was still a part-time elf. And she's like, there's no way they're going to qualify and close. We'll just write it out to the end. She did a terrible job. Okay. And I remember sitting at the closing table and looking at her commission, which, I mean, the house was only 70 grand. So I think she made like $5,000 or something. And I remember thinking to myself, that's interesting. That's a lot of car details. And this whole thing was a mess beginning to end. So at that I just sort of set that aside for a second. And then you can tell your Jack Rosselli story before or after this. We also, during the detail business, remember this was Ohio and in the winter.
Yeah. Let's do it sequentially. So okay.
I'm trying to remember which happened first.
The detailing business, Jack Rosselli. So we went to Jack Rosselli and Rosselli Construction. Again, we were blessed to have Jack Rosselli in our lives. He was a detail customer. He wasn't like putting his arm around us and giving us some advice and being, overly paternalistic with us for sure. I mean, he was a very drilled down businessman, but I watched him. I learned from him. I read about him. He was a legend in
very successful. For those of people who don't know who we're talking about, commercial real estate. He built the Columbus Zoo. He built a lot of stuff and commercial and infrastructure and all sorts of things. And was probably, I don't know, he's at least 30 years older than us. So he was at it a lot longer than us. And we were looking up to him because he already had a very established business.
And he was generational wealth. His grandfather, yes. I think, had started Rosselli Construction. And Jack Rosselli in Columbus, Ohio, the Rosselli family, I'm sure to this point, to this day, is one of the most respected families. Respected for all the right reasons. So we had Jack's detail business. Jack had a nice car collection too, but that doesn't matter for today's show. We went to Jack and we said, we wanted to scale up our detail business. We had a great roster. He knew a lot of our clients. He had sent us some of our clients. So he knew we did a great job. We weren't just, flash in the pan. And we went to him and I'll paint the story for you because this is really how it worked. And his wife, an angel for sure.
Super sweet.
She sets up an appointment for us to come over to their house. It was either on a Saturday or Sunday morning. And I'm not making any of this up. So he is sitting, they have this gorgeous house in Arlington at the time. It was stone, it was marble, it was just freaking beautiful. I don't know how to describe it, just trust me.
To date, one of the nicest houses that we've seen, especially back then. I don't think either one of us had ever been in a house like that before.
No, and it wasn't a palace or a show-off house. It was just really, really well done, like a European Italian house. If those of you who've been to,
a chateau.
So we show up, and he was always worried about things like even though we had a new car and all the rest of it, he didn't ever let us park in the driveway because he was worried about oil from whatever we were driving dripping on his beautiful Italian pavers in his driveway. I mean, it was Yeah. So we walk into his patio, walk up, and then we finally get to him, and he's sitting with his back towards where we walked in, and he's wearing this robe, and he's got this beautiful flowing white hair, and he's having his morning espresso. He doesn't, Jack, unless he's mad, he's mad at me once, and I'll never forget it. But unless he's mad, he never raises his voice, always has very
Very
congenial,
calm.
just a
Yeah.
freaking, Italian gentleman like you've never experienced before. So
Mhm.
Julie and I sit down, and he kind of knows what we're there for. And we said, blah, 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 detail business, da, 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 money, cash flow, whatever, whatever, whatever. He listens to the whole thing. He listens. And he said, he goes, I'm going to give you some advice. And he does sound like this. I'm doing my
It
Godfather
does.
here routine, but he does sound like this. I'm going to give you some advice. And then after he said his advice, we were like, bye-bye. He hit the bye-bye button, but this was it. Don't try to make he didn't have an Italian accent. I don't know how else to do it. Don't try to make your hobby a business. And I thought to myself, holy shit, that's the exact opposite of what everyone's been telling me. Find your passion and the money will follow. Well,
Yeah.
he said, don't try to make your passion your business because you'll end up hating your passion and you'll be confused. The whole thing. And then he
Yep.
said, you two should get into real estate. That's what he said. He said, you
Mhm.
guys should get into real estate. And then it was like, bye-bye.
All right, gotta go.
We're
Need my
gone.
second espresso.
And
Yeah.
we left. Oh, and his bird's name was Enzo after Enzo Ferrari. And his
Yeah.
bird hated me. His big ass bird, it
I
was a
remember it.
macaw.
So
And his bird was sitting right
I was
over,
afraid
like
of him too.
his
Yeah.
bird was sitting right to his side and staring him at the whole time. Like when Jack says he's done talking to you, and if you don't leave, Enzo, he's
He'll make
coming
sure
for
you
you.
leave.
And so I'm like, okay, Julie, time to go.
Gotta go.
That's what happened.
Yes.
And so
And,
we
and that was great advice, though. And that's what we needed at the time. And meanwhile, about this time, we had been reviewing the detail business. And it did great in most of the seasons, but in the winter, it would get cold. And so one of the things that we started to do for fun is we would go to open houses. And remember, one year, it snowed like snowmageddon. It was like, I don't know, 2 feet of snow or something insane. And most of the roads were closed. I remember the streets hadn't been cleared, but we're driving around like, what are we going to do on this snowy day? And we see an open house sign. It's basically in our neighborhood. We're like, let's go check out this house. And so because probably by then we'd realized that living in 726 square feet might not be sustainable. But anyway, we were looking at this open house, and I will never forget. You remember when we pulled in, and there's this huge snowdrift where he had cleared the driveway at least, and there's like an 8 foot mound of snow with an open house sign way up on the top, right? And so we went in and we started talking to a broker who we're friends with to this day,
Faulkner.
JP Faulkner. He's a broker in Columbus. And, he showed us the house and stuff, but there wasn't hardly anybody going there. So we ended up talking to him. And I will never forget this. He stood there and he's like, yeah, last year I made $100,000 in real estate. And he
No,
was
dude.
like,
No, dude.
wasn't
It
it?
was it was like
Was
300,000.
it 300?
Yeah.
So he's like, and I think you and I were like early 20s, and he might have been like 2 years older than us or something like that. He was basically our age. And he's like, yeah, I made 250 to $300,000 last year. And you and I looked at each other like, huh, that's interesting. And we had just had the meeting with Russilli, who was like, you got to get into
Well,
real estate.
it was in the same 12-month span, but so
Yeah.
we're seeing God's sending us all these little messages, and as
Yes.
long and we were, I guess, smart enough to be tuning in to listening to the messages he was trying to tell us. And
Yes.
that
And so that was in January, and by March we were licensed.
Well, she mentioned the snow, but so during the winter, what we would do is a lot of the same customers that had their cars would have us detail their planes, and a lot of them had private jets. And so that's what we would do, which is very lucrative in itself. But there weren't that many of them. So this
Right.
particular winter was really nasty. And so the detailing business wasn't making any money. And we had to keep payroll going, or the guys were going to quit the whole thing. And that's what so the combination of the meeting with Jack the previous fall or summer, and then essentially nasty winter, meeting with JP, the detail or the crappy real estate transaction we'd had before, that was the impetus to make us say, well, you know what? Let's just get real estate licenses. And we did.
Yep.
It's that
Did.
complicated. We
And
had
so when
no,
you say our first full year, we sold 103 houses. It wasn't that year because we got licensed in spring of that year. We were figuring out what we were doing, getting ramped up. That next full year is when we sold all those houses.
yep.
Because
And
we,
so,
and you were right. We essentially recreated the things that we had done in the detail business that started the business and sustained the business. And our first mailing list, you'll recall, was your database of detail clients, your professional center of influence, essentially. And I think some of our first listings, not very many of them, but some of our first ones, Hazel Shorter's listing. And the rest of it came from, guess what? Good old fashioned door knocking, open houses, talking to for sale by owners, expireds, all of the things.
I was
Because guess
FISBOed.
what? We didn't have a lot of marketing budget. And by the way, there was no such thing as Zillow or social media either. So even if we felt like blowing money that way, stupidly, we couldn't have done it if we wanted to.
I went after FISBOs. That was my jam. And so if
FISBOs
there,
were great, especially the ones that hadn't bought yet. We
yep.
did so much FISBO business.
Well, that was it. So she just said it. So I would find it for sale by owner, and there was always a lot because this area that we were living in was, ripe with FISBOs, and so that's what I would do. I just every time there was a FISBO, I would knock on the door. I had no script. I had no previous training. What I did know is they had to sell a house, and I would ask them, and I wouldn't call. I would just knock on the damn door because they're going to be way nicer to you when you're looking at them face to face than they'd ever be. Because
Mhm.
I'd say, hey, we live down the way, all that. I
Yep.
was showing them the social
Largely in
connection.
our own neighborhood to start. Yeah.
I was showing them the social connection so that basically they would feel more comfortable with us right away. And so as a result of that, I would then find out if they wanted to buy a house. So then I would say, okay, well, I know they have a house to sell. I know they want to buy a house. So that's two transactions. And then we would basically make it happen. And ended up doing, in that first full year, we ended up doing what amounted to basically 50-50 between buyers and sellers. And that was it. That's the whole formula. That's what we did. We did not have a plan. We did not have a coach. We did some shadowing and all the rest of it. The truth is, we didn't even know how many houses we'd sold because we weren't even keeping track. We were just doing wash, rinsing, and repeating constantly. We take a listing, take 5 listings, and we would go out and do constant open houses. We would look for the same thing. Straight up buyers, fine. If that buyer wanted to buy our particular listing, we obviously focus a lot on them. We learned the difference between buyers and sellers. Just no one was telling us. We had no training. Our broker didn't train us. We knew from experience. We didn't wait around for someone to tell us what to do. We went out and threw ourselves in the deep end. And why did we do that? It wasn't like we're going to throw ourselves in the deep end. It's because we had completely burned the bridges, burned the boats, as the story goes, from our old businesses. So this is the important thing. How did we go from the detail business, Julie being an elf, to the real estate business? We had a competitor in the detail business, and he was somebody that did a really good job. He wasn't, didn't do his business was nowhere as large as ours, but I knew he took care of the customers. That was the main thing. He did a great job, took care of the customers. People liked him. So what I ended up doing is Julie and I sat down with him. Andy, remember what's Andy's last name, Julie?
I'll remember in a second.
So
Andrew and Anita.
yeah. And so we sat down with Andy Andrew, that's right. It was Andrew, not Andy. And we sat down with him and we told him, and we met at a coffee shop.
Smith, I think.
Huh?
Andrew Smith?
Yeah, Smith. That's right. I think he was a character in Matrix, but in any event. So we sat down with him and we told him that he thought, he had no idea why we were sitting down because in his mind, we were, arch rivals. And we sat down with him and we said, we want to give you the detail business, not sell it, but give it to you, because we figured he didn't have the money to buy it. Well, frankly, I didn't have the business acumen to think of even selling it, but I wanted to give it to you. And that's what I did. I gave him my customer list. I helped him to start adopting my customers because I knew he would take care of them, and he did. Now, whatever happened to it, I'm not really sure. I didn't follow through on it. I would imagine that probably without Julie and I at the helm, it didn't do as well as it was doing. I'm only going to guess, because it's not still in business. But the moral of the story is that's what we look for. And then we burned the bridges. We literally cut ourselves off from the revenue source, all the revenue sources. So we had no choice other than to sell real estate. And when we did that, we had no savings, which is crazy to say, but it's true. We had no savings. We cut off our revenue. We went all in on real estate. That's how much we believed in our ability to go out there and hustle and earn money. And we did, and it worked. And you can do the same thing. Nothing's changed. If anything, it's gotten more confusing because there's more, noise out there, but it's gotten easier because frankly, there's more people to sell to. There's more people that want to buy and sell real estate. There's more money out there. Back then, the issue we had was, a lot of people had affordability problems like they do now, but in a different way. We don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
It was the early 90s. People were still licking their wounds, believe it or not, from the late 70s and the 80s. And financially speaking, it's not unusual nowadays to come across a normal middle-class person with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in their house. When Julie
People
and I,
were not equity rich in the same way they are now.
No, no. Okay. So when Julie and I sold real estate, it was very, very rare for any seller to recoup anything beyond their down payment, even if unless they lived in the house between 7 and 10 years. And usually they were losing some of their down payment. Okay. Why?
That's true.
Because the real estate the homes in Columbus were inflating by 3% per year. But the expense of selling the house, our commission and the selling fees, obviously, and the money they put into the house, net, they were losing money. But people still bought and sold
Mhm.
real estate. That's the world that we sold real estate in. We didn't sell real estate in a world where people were, I mean, at least in our big formidable years in real estate, they weren't winning the real estate lottery. That wasn't the way it worked.
No,
So
they
we
weren't like buying and selling for fun to flip their way up or what have you. It was mostly like lifestyle decisions, having another kid, all the normal true motivations were what we were dealing with by and
Yeah.
large. But they
So
still transacted. And again, remind them, I remember closing after closing, people were closing at 8% routinely, and it was not an issue.
yeah,
That's
no,
just that's just the environment we were in.
that's true. So we sold over 100 homes our first year. We were Remax agents at the time. Obviously, we won all kinds of different awards. But here's the funny part. Julie and I were sitting on the steps or on the curb at a movie theater in Dublin, Ohio, waiting for the movie to start. And it was like maybe late summer, and she and I were trying to think how many houses we had sold. Remember, we'd only been married a few years at this point, and we were trying to remember how many houses we'd actually sold. And so we started to sort of add them up, sort of guess, right? Like a da, 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 da. And we got up to like 60 or 75, somewhere in there. And I remember we called our broker, Rory. This exactly how it happened. And we called Rory and we say, "Hey, Rory." And he wasn't really paying attention either. He didn't know how many houses we were selling. He knew we were doing good, but
He
it's
was a
Remax.
broker who sold a lot of real estate himself. He was
Yeah.
busy.
I mean, at Remax back in the day, we'd pay $800 a month and the broker wasn't getting any of the commission. So as long as we paid the $800, he didn't care.
Right.
No. So I called him up. I said, "Rory, we think we sold and closed around 75 houses, somewhere in there." I said, "What does the normal agent do in their first year in business?" And he didn't say anything. And he goes, "No." I called him up and I said, "Rory, what's the average for how many houses an agent will sell in the first year of business, or what's good, first full year in business?" And he goes, "How many houses did you sell? Have you sold?" And I said, "We think we did maybe 65, 70, somewhere in there." And this is what happened. And this is the best thing ever that he could have said to us. He didn't kiss our asses. He didn't ask us to speak at the next office meeting.
Attaboy. No.
He didn't attaboy us. He goes, "Call me when you get to 100. Call me back when you get to 100." And then he hung up the phone.
Yep. We didn't know.
You go, okay, Julie, we got to get to 100. That was it, I guess.
Exactly.
We got to 100. That was it. Okay. And we got to, what I told you. So then after that, again, we had no idea what we had done. This is a true story. The floodgates opened. And all of a sudden, the real estate world became our oyster. Remax regions and different people
Howard
were.
Brinton, that's about when we got involved with Howard.
Yeah, Howard Brinton found out about it. We got flown out to, where was it? Colorado. We did this
Remax Central. Yeah.
Remax TV thing. We met Howard Brinton. He was doing the interview. That's how we originally met Howard, if you
Mhm.
remember correctly. He was doing that thing
Mhm.
for Remax. We were
Yep.
flying all over the place, doing these little speaking events and all this other thing. Everyone was saying, "You guys got to figure out, how to do what Craig Proctor back then was doing. You have to da 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 da." And remember, we were not the alpha. We were not following anybody. We weren't following Howard. We weren't following Craig Proctor was big back then. And Mike Ferry was big back then. We weren't following any of these people. We didn't have any scripts. We were literally just putting together using our intuition and our business acumen from our previous experiences and just going after the business. That's what we were doing. Just putting two and two together.
Mhm.
And then over time, then we would say things and we'd find a script. We'd read something. We'd hear somebody say something. We started getting Howard Brinton's Star of the Month tapes, listen to what those people were saying. And then we started following our scripts. So the first year in business, it was a tremendous amount of work because we were trying to figure out what to say. The second year in the business, again, between 100 and 200 homes per year is what we sold for about 10 years. Second year in the business, so much easier because we were using other people's scripts that really worked at great. And we combined what we were doing and then we create our own scripts. And those scripts have evolved ever since. And so that's basically, I think those are kind of our formidable years in real estate. And again, I'm skipping a ton, but we, Howard Brinton stars. We were National Association of Realtors. They ended up doing two cover stories on us, one cover story and another one, which we are Agents of the Year in the rookie category. We are featured in all kinds of different things. And guys, this was before the internet. So before the internet, when you got your magazine, your National Association of Today's Realtor, whatever it was called, and you read through that thing, that was a big deal. The
Mhm.
Ohio Board of Realtors was doing stories. It was just, we were real estate famous, and we kind of got sucked into it, to be honest with you. We were getting, everyone was just, it was weird walking into a room full of agents who were all looking to hear from the prophets that came down from up high in Ohio and now are in Mississippi or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're waiting for us to, and we just told them what we did, told them what we said and the rest of it. And then, we realized at that point, our real estate business was suffering. So when Julie and I got into real estate, our primary objective, and we said this in an interview that we did for National Association of Realtors, was to buy enough rental properties, have them paid off so we could live off the cash flow from our paid off rental properties so that we would be rich. Now, I didn't formulate the rich is where where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. This was, Tim 1.0. So I didn't have all those big thoughts at that point.
Mhm.
So, but we knew that. We knew what we wanted to
We
get.
wanted passive income.
Right. And so we started to buy rental properties. We started to buy rental properties our second year in real estate, and we kept on buying rental properties. But when we stopped buying rental properties is when we were allowing ourselves to be pulled into the egotistical side of real estate, the adulation, the fame. And we had,
Speaking gigs and awards and lions and tigers and bears and the whole thing.
where are
Yeah.
you on this list and that list and all the rest of it? And we were on all the lists, and people would congratulate us, and it was just too much. And I remember like our mission was to do what I just said, and then all of a sudden we found ourselves being pulled in this other direction. Okay, so the direction that we were wanting to be on was to be rich, where our money work was working for us. We no longer work for our money. The direction we got pulled in for probably 18 months, almost 24 months, was the famous rich. And that's what's happened to the industry, by the way. That was when the big team business model started. That was when the marketing, the branding started. That was when all this ego bullshit really started to take over real estate, where like you try to fool or create this marketing brand and everything, and somehow the clouds are going to part and people are going to call you to list their houses. All lies. And we knew it from our own experiences, from having did what he did, which is very rare. To this day, I don't know of anyone that's sold over 100 houses their first year. No one did it before. No one's done it since, to the best of my knowledge. But we were manipulated into believing that we needed to start doing marketing and branding and forming a big team and doing the rest of it. And so we did. And guess what happened? We sold more houses, we increased our revenue, but we decreased our net. And we figured, well, we must be doing something wrong. We had this big team. I'll maybe, Anne, if you can find that, she's our editor, find the picture of the team with all the, red, white, and blue.
Coach Rochelle has that picture too.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, put it on this video. And
Yeah.
and so we did it. We've done the team thing. And we know what the profitability of it was. And then when we go to these big Howard Brinton events, where we were like, at this point in the industry, we were real estate famous, is what I like to call it.
Mhm.
We go to real estate events and everyone would know who we were. We step outside the hotel, no one would know who we were, which is kind of fun. So we had this big team. We were really living the life and believing everything, but we were selling more houses, getting more attention, but our net income was dropping. And our net income was dropping, so we weren't buying rental properties anymore. Julie and I had gotten off mission.
Mhm.
And it was, I don't know, at this point, you were just turned 30,
Mhm.
maybe 29, 28. And I remember you and I had our accountant, Fred, who basically pointed out the fact. Remember what I'm telling you. These are real numbers. Our first year in real estate, we closed $287,500 in real estate in commissions. We earned over 300,000, but that's what we netted. Now, I want you to scale this out. That was in the mid 90s. So that today is probably close to $1 million, right? So from that, we netted from that about 85, 90%. We had no expenses. We netted that large sum of money. 3 or 4 years after that, we were doing probably 5 times the volume, 5 times the units, the whole thing. We had a team, we had 7 buyer agents, but our net was less than it was the first year in the business. And we thought we were doing something wrong. We thought, oh my gosh,
We're like, how can this be?
how can this be? Because we were lied to. That's why.
WTF wasn't around back then, but had it been.
That's right. Well, the
And we
non-acronym.
and also we had met, if you recall, we had met a couple of agents at some of the Howard Brinton events that when we were doing 100 to 200 deals, they were doing like 200 to 300. And we were setting goals going like, well, what if we do 300? Maybe we just need to do more deals. That's the answer. We just need to have more transactions. And we met some of those folks and we were talking money with them and they're like, yeah, they didn't have any money either. So how can you do 100 more deals than we were doing? And they didn't have that much to show for it.
Listen
And
to
it
what
was because their team was twice as big and their expenses were twice as big and their net was, half.
Well, listen to what she said. So we were going to these Howard Brinton events. At this point, Julie and I are Howard Brinton stars. Back in the day, that was pretty much in the real estate industry, the highest level of accomplishment you could have to be a Howard Brinton star. There was only maybe
Big deal.
30 of us in the country and, the whole thing. You guys know, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But in any event, so we were Howard Brinton stars. And he would have these retreats for Howard stars. And he'd always do it at the nicest Ritz-Carltons in America, sometimes in different parts of the world. We'd fly out there, we'd do these events, and we'd set up these round tables. And every year, it was about, this was before Gary Keller wrote his Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Every year, the conversation was never about net. It was never about what was originally important to us. It was about more units, growing your team. You want to make it so you're no longer working with buyers and sellers. You got to delegate everything, marketing and branding, blah, 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 blah. Same crap.
I remember being very disappointed about that because you and I at that point were wanting more guidance. In the beginning, we were following some of these Howard Brinton people, like how do you put together this marketing and that marketing, and how do you grow your team? Okay, that's all well and good. But now how do you keep more of what you made? And there wasn't really that much, there wasn't coaching about any kind of business planning or investing or saving or even much about growing your rental property inventory. Nothing like that. It was all about doing more transactions, more volume, growing your team, growing your team. It wasn't like, well, how can I have some financial and business maturity? That was kind of missing. And I remember being disappointed about that.
Howard would have at these retreats, these invitation only things, he would have panels or he'd have sessions, breakout sessions. And one of the for example, a breakout session would be how to go from 100 to 200 units per year, 200 to 300 and whatever. Then he would take our notes and then he would use that for his seminar content for the following year, which we all knew what he was doing. We didn't care. And it was always a competition at these tables to come up with the best ideas. And so it was great. It was a huge manipulation, but it was fun. And again, the focus there was no table, to Julie's point, on how to increase your net. There was no table on how to make 90% net. There's nothing about that. It was all about more units, more volume, more, which we felt was out of alignment with what our motivations and our purpose was. But all of these other people, we figured they were a lot older than us. We were the kids in the room. They must be smarter than us. They must know something we don't. Like Julie said, they must know that once you reach this sort of mythical peak of 300, 500 houses per year, then the net income comes, then everything comes, all of a sudden the clouds clear again and, angels start lifting you up. None of that's true. It's all a lie. Because what we found was what we are experiencing as we are ascending in units and volume was the exact opposite. And then when we watched this Howard thing and we were asking for guidance, they didn't even, most of them, there were a few exceptions, maybe 4, but they weren't even thinking like we think. They weren't even having the same thoughts. They had literally, their whole concentration was, I love a lot of those people. A lot of them, we're still friends with, but it definitely wasn't about what ours was. Ours was, like I said, we wanted to be financially free. We wanted to be rich where our money works for us.
We wanted to get back to the North Star.
And we had no interest in being famous. What the hell difference does that make? Who cares? And this was before the internet, right? So we didn't give a rat's ass about being famous. We just wanted to be financially free. We were a couple, Julie was a normal kid. I was a poor kid from Columbus, Ohio. It doesn't seem like that hard, right? And so the Howard people, when Julie and I were in these environments, we got sucked into a lot of it. We started doing a lot of it. We realized it was stupid. We stopped doing it. We'd go to the Howard things. We'd say what we discovered, that it was stupid, and they didn't like it because now we were the ones on the outside of this coveted little elite group who were essentially pointing out the fallacies in what they were doing. I'm glad we did it. And I remember we were sitting at a long ass table. And Howard was saying this was back when, and it's still happening to this day. And I want you to be thinking all of the crap that I'm telling you about happened in the 90s. And all of this stuff now is still considered state of the art for people in real estate, which is such crap. So Howard is up there and his big thing was you have to teach every single person in your team, right? This is where teams came from. Don't think it came from Keller Williams. It did not. You have to teach, you have to cross train. So your buyer's agent have to learn how to go on listings. Your this has to do this. Your this has to do this. Cover for each other. Everyone has to know
Mhm.
how to do each other's job. Well, Howard was training, had little universities that were training people to do all these different things. And obviously he was trying to butter his own bread. And someone spent $5,000 to send your buyer agent to his, school. And now you're getting pressured to spend $5,000 to send him to your listing school. Fine. I had no, whatever. But I raised my hand and I said, why would I want to train my buyer agent to be a listing agent? Why would I want to train my competition? And he got so pissed at me. And
I
Howard,
remember that.
and this is in front of all the stars. And this was a Howard event. And the Howard events were never like that. They're all big kumbaya. In retrospect, I mean, he would wear Birkenstocks. Okay. I don't need to say much more than that, do I? That's what the event vibe was like. And so I asked that question and he was instantaneously pissed at me. And that was the last one we went to because I realized finally the reason that we don't feel perfectly at home here isn't because we don't love the people and they don't love us. It's because what they're preaching is not in alignment with what our goal was and is to this day. And so when you guys want to know what, and this is we're telling our story, but we're also hoping you understand where our founding beliefs come from. They don't come from shit we watched on YouTube or something we read in a book. They come from real life experience. So we go to that was the last retreat we went to. There was one more Howard Britton Star Power or whatever it was called we went to. And then this was where Howard, and I'll never forget this. And this was the last official Howard event we went to. We didn't say we're not going anymore. We didn't burn a bridge. We just stopped going. We were at Howard. It was room full, maybe 2,500 people, 2,000. You can't really tell when you have over 1,000 people unless you count them, but it was a big room. Julie and I were in the back of the room. Howard had just done some thing on branding or marketing and whatever. And it was a break. And he announced that he was coming up with the coaching program. Now, the big egos in coaching for years have argued about who started coaching in the real estate industry. I'll clear the air. It was Howard Britton because we were there when he did it. And he said, I'm thinking about me and Amy Stair, who still is running Star Power. We love Amy. He said, I'm going to be starting a coaching thing. And if you guys and Amy and I think there was two other people had gotten trained and we want to, we're offering coaching, they really didn't know what the take rate was be. And I remember being in the back of the room and he said, if you're interested in being a part of our coaching program, we're going to be charging this much. And this is what we're thinking the format's going to be. I want you to just toss your business card up on stage. We're in the back of the room, and I swear to you, 99% of the room rushed to the stage and threw their business cards on the stage.
Remember that.
And Julie and I are standing there going like, what the hell just happened? We were there when we saw the start of what was a major shift in real estate coaching and real estate training had moved to real estate coaching. And so on the break, and we weren't one of Howard's original stars, our original coaches. At the break, people started coming up to us and started saying, I like what you guys, because people had gotten to know us and gotten to know our vibe as far as like what we were all about, because they'd heard us speak before at different events or they just whatever. So they came up to us and they started asking us, will you guys coach us? Will you coach us? I knew what coaching was. I knew enough to never say no. So I just said yes. Yes, 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 yes. Give me your card, give me your card, give me your card. And then I called all of them back and I started coaching them. I didn't know what I was doing. That's what happened. And that was in the late 90s. That's how it started. And one of our original coaching clients is like one of the first three was a guy named Michael Gordon, and his wife, Michael and Robin, are absolute legends in the real estate industry. I'll take a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of credit for it because I helped them get their original business plan together, but they're in the main line in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you want to look them up, they sell like multi-million-dollar estates and the whole thing. But a lot of the coaching clients we still have, or at least that are still in our orbit, or from that era. And so we started our own coaching business. And how did we transition from selling real estate to coaching? Same thing. The real estate business was doing great, humming along, doing all the work, making money. Everything was great. But the coaching business took off like a rocket ship. And it took off to the point where it didn't even take a year. Again, Julie and I are focused on net income, where the net income from the coaching business was easily going to eclipse within probably 12 months, 24 months on the outside, the net from the real estate business. And if I had put more effort toward the coaching business, I could probably half that timeline. And that's what I did. And
Mhm.
so again, we hard stopped selling real estate. We gave our real estate business away to my brother, gave it away, didn't sell it, didn't ask for referral fees, didn't ask for anything. John was working for us at the time and gave it away, walked away from the business. And even to make it so that we absolutely burned our bridges, it wasn't too much longer after that we actually moved out of state because we knew that we knew the coaching business was going to be a lot harder to build. It required a lot more brain cells, a lot more education we didn't have. We're going to put a lot more effort into it. So building a successful coaching and training business, selling products basically, is at least 100 times harder than selling real estate in every
Yeah.
single freaking way. But that's what we did. And our coaching business, I mean, it took off. We have had, I don't know how many coaching clients, hundreds of thousands of coaching clients over the last, basically 25 years. That's what we've done, and 24 years. And we've done that, in good times and bad times. Where market was hot when it was not. Short sales, we were the first in the market to produce a short tail coaching program. But I'm skipping over a lot, Julie, but what do you think? I've been talking nonstop.
Yeah, well, do you want to talk about we coached for Mike Ferry for a while?
Yep.
At this point, when we transitioned to coaching, we have to point out that at that point we had tons of selling real estate experience. We sold over 100 houses a year for a decade, or nearly a
Well, you
decade.
mentioned Mike Ferry. Let's talk about it,
Yeah,
okay?
let's talk about that. And that
Okay.
was part of our move out west as well.
Okay, so we were selling, the coaching business was going really well. I called a Howard Brinton star, Greg, you remember his name in San Diego?
Newman, was it
Newman,
Greg
Greg
Newman?
Newman.
Yeah.
And Greg was one of the few people I knew was a legit rich guy because he actually bought rental properties. He wasn't just selling a lot of real estate. And one of the things we started to piece together were the people at Howard's that actually had real money were the
Mhm.
ones that were proactive lead generators. What we had done our first year in business, so we knew they weren't full of shit because we had done it ourselves. Following me here? We did the marketing, the branding, and the big team thing. Net falls. We went back to when we got, we retooled our real estate business, went back to the way we did it in our original business, and then our net increased again, just like that.
Mhm.
So we knew Greg was legit. So the coaching business takes off. I call up Greg Newman. Great guy, fantastic guy. And I said, Greg, Julie and I have this coaching business. It's da 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 da. I want to sell the real estate business. Have you ever heard anyone successfully sell the real estate business? He didn't waste my time. He said, no, no one's ever sold a real estate business. It's not worth anything. You guys go, the business goes. The best you can do is maybe, get referral fees, and just gave me some different ideas. I said, well, what should we do with the coaching business? And he said, I want you to call my friend Mike Ferry. He connected me with Mike Ferry. And
Mhm.
Mike Ferry was without a doubt in that era, him and Howard Brinton were the two absolute, legends in the real estate space. So he connected me directly with Mike. And I asked, Mike took me on as a private coaching client. And I had one coaching call with him. And he said, we'd never been to a Mike Ferry event. We'd never used any Mike Ferry scripts. We never had anything to do with Mike Ferry at all. We were in the Howard camp. We never came across Mike Ferry. It just never did. Wish we had, but never did.
Yeah.
So I had one call with him and I said, well, this is what I'm doing, the real estate business, the coaching business. Greg thought I might, and he goes, you have a coaching business? And I said, yes. And he said, well, how many, we talked about the clients and all that. And we had like, I don't remember, it wasn't 100, but somewhere in there. And he said, well, I can't coach you. I said, why? And he goes, you're a competitor. And I said, okay, I guess that makes sense. And he goes, but here's what I want you to do. I'm doing an event in Florida and I want you and Julie to fly down. I want to meet you. And then if, everything clicks, let's talk about you coaching for me. And again, a legend invites us to coach for him. And then we flew down to Florida. He met us. We had to go through a lot of fiery burning hoops with him because Mike is definitely not somebody that's going to suffer fools. He then had us, he followed through on everything he said to us. He said, I will, if you guys pass muster, you get through my fiery burning boot camps and all the rest of it, because I want to make sure you guys, yes, you can sell real estate, but can you coach?
Lots and lots and lots of coaches training.
It was brutal, honestly. I mean, back in
Yeah,
the day, it was brutal, but I'm so glad we went through it.
me too.
The real estate industry will never create an environment where that's possible again for a whole bunch of reasons, but we did it. And then he made us full-time coaches. Julie was first, then he made me a full-time coach. And through Mike, Julie and I would have 60 to 74 private coaching calls a week. And we did that for almost 4 years. And if you add that up, that's thousands of coaching calls. And this is before we went back to starting our own real estate business. But he did everything he
Coaching
promised he
business.
was going to do. And he was very honorable with the commitments he made to us.
Yeah.
You know, That's what my thoughts about Mike. So if you're with Mike and if you are looking for somebody who's in alignment with the same values that you have, proactively generation, being a professional, learning an organized business system,
Mhm.
and you're wondering what solidified that for us, it was coaching for Mike for 4 years and
Yep.
going through the trials and tribulations of what that entails. It's not easy, trust me. Hardest thing I ever did. Julie, would you agree?
100%.
She was just rolling her eyes. It was so
That's
hard.
where, I mean, it wasn't just like 2 events of coaches training. It was
No.
like, I think we were doing something every other month for that whole entire time and had coaching clients and, the live events and, because coaches were required to go to every single live event, which was like 10 months of the year. So yeah, it was
This
very, very, very intense.
This was Mike Ferry in his absolute prime when he had a, 50+ million a year coaching business, and he was doing it better than anybody else. And he was benchmarking everything in the industry and
Yes.
probably other industries as well. Just an unbelievable thing to be part of, truthfully, especially because when we started, we were part of the massive growth. Was certainly wasn't because of us, but we were there when it was happening. It was incredible. He eventually made Julie and I vice presidents of a new division called Real Estate Top Producers, which was just for upper end agents, but here nor there. We saw the bend in the road coming with regards to short sales. This was in 2007.
This was ramping right up to the housing crash.
Right. We had sold real estate before in Columbus. We had seen what a kind of a flat, crappy market can be like. We knew how to do short sales. We saw the market was going to change. And, we thought the greater opportunity for us was outside of actually working for Mike. And he was, again, providing us a wonderful lifestyle. At this point, we'd moved out of Ohio. We were, everything was great. But again, what did we do? We burned the bridges. We burned the bridges and restarted our own coaching business, gave us no options other than to restart our own coaching business. And it took off at higher levels faster than anything we'd ever experienced before. That happened. And it was the cumulative experience of everything that we'd led up. But really what it was because of you guys. We had people that had been part of our lives as coaching clients all the way since our original coaching business, all the way till today. Because people were in alignment with what our value set was. And our value set was forming, we were becoming the people we are now. And, I hope, am I on track here, Julie, with our story?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that we went through together, and so many different types of markets. And, this is what I guess I would attribute some of our time with Mike to the fact that you and I are so fluent in coaching anywhere because the clients that we handled during those years, especially, were, a lot of it was California and out west, but it was also, all over the place and all different types of markets and luxury agents and not luxury agents and all kinds of different things. I mean, I even remember, he would assign us clients, and we'd have a little pre-qualification checklist and stuff. And he once assigned me like people that owned car washes and laundromats. And I remember calling Mike and I'm like, what makes you think that I can do anything with that? And he goes, well, ask them what their goals are, ask them what their numbers are, do exactly what you do for a real estate professional and coach them on their business. You can do this. I never would have had that exposure. So that kind of broad base between the things that we learned that were great from Howard, plus the things that we learned when we were Mike Ferry coaches, plus our own experience. Because how many coaches, we talk on the podcast all the time, how many people that call themselves coaches actually sold real estate at any level, much less over 100 homes a year for 10 years, plus all of the different stuff we got from Howard, stuff we got from Mike, and our own experience in our own coaching business. So if we fast forward through the housing crash, we had the biggest short sale coaching organization, REOs. We even taught BPOs, broker price opinion, which we never thought in a million years that why would you ever need that? But during the housing crash, that was a big thing. And we had people, we still have these testimonial letters. You remember the agent that said, quote, I would be living under a bridge if you hadn't taught me that. So that fast forwarded and pulled out of where we are now. Back to you.
Well, I mean, that's the point is, as far as our little, 4-ish year time with Mike, we have nothing. We didn't, I mean, it was hard. You don't leave Mike when you're operating at that level and not walk out with a few bumps and bruises, which we did. I don't even remember any of it, but I will tell you this. Some of you do who have been with us for a long time. Julie and I have nothing but love and respect for Mike, honestly. And now he's in his 80s. And yeah, he was if you guys will see a recurring theme, there's been a certain type of paternal influence that's been present in our lives that we've responded well to. And it was one that was very drivery, if you guys know DISC, and
For
did
sure.
not pull the punches at all. That's what we worked with. And again, it kept us, you need people in your lives like that. And a lot of nowadays, people are afraid to be like that. People don't, the coaching and the training isn't real coaching and training. I don't want to talk endlessly about this, but the reality of it is if you're looking for a coach, you got to find someone that's sold real estate at a high level for a long time. And then even if they can sell real estate at a high level, you got to make sure that they can actually coach and train at a high level. And if they don't ever actually have the experience, can't actually prove that they've done it, then you need to keep looking and find someone who has. And that's true with anything you want to take on in life, whether it's physical fitness, building wealth, it doesn't really matter what it is. And so we are so massively, internally, spiritually grateful for all the people that took a chance with us over the last 34 years and were willing to invest in us, and willing to, like, I mean, my gosh, I remember some coaches trainings with Mike. You did not look forward to those. They were not a kumbaya session. Trust me when I tell you, there were no Birkenstocks in the room. There
Trial
were
by
no,
fire, baby. That was
there were no,
it.
there were no
You can
group
survive
hugs.
that, you can coach.
Yep. There are no group hugs. You had to, like when Julie and I scaled up our coaching business and we had 30 coaches. We don't have 30 coaches now. We have like half that, but we send tapes. Like our coaches now have to send us tapes of their coaching calls so we can make sure they're being frosty, make sure they're not getting lazy, make
Recordings,
sure
not tapes.
all the rest of it. Recordings. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Audios, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, yes, that's, so we
Yeah,
wrote
but I think the greater point, and yes, absolute tons of gratitude to everyone that helped us along the way, but certainly to our coaching clients that many of them have been with us through these different cycles. But you and I were talking the other day on our walk, and you asked me, I do have a coaching call coming up and then
I know.
stuff. But we were talking about how we were looking back on our 34 years together in marriage and 30 years in real estate in phases, right? So life has these chapters to it. And I think that it's important. One of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast today is to share our story, but also to help you recognize that along the way, we can recognize if you're listening to the pod until now, we had, Jack Russilli helped us at a certain point to make that bridge. That was significant to us. Howard Brinton, Mike Ferry, all of these people that come into your life. Hopefully, we've come into your lives in a similar way. This is our way of giving back and showing gratitude and taking all of the things that we've learned along the way through all of that, plus our own experience. What's the point of all that? It's to share with you. It's to help you to move your business forward, to move your life forward, to set some very exciting goals, and to know maybe on some level, if we can do it, poor kids from Ohio didn't have 2 cents to rub together. In fact, we when we were married, we it was worse than that. We're talking about it was negative. We had debt. We had student loan debt. It wasn't just that we had nothing. We had less than nothing. And if we can do that without scripts, okay,
Well, Julie,
what
go
can
back to
you
that.
do with the training that we can bring to you? Go ahead.
Julie, we had $43,000 of student loan debt. Our
Mhm.
first year in business, I told you what we did. We went to the backyard of our house at 280 East Jeffrey. We had some lighter fluid. This really happened. We put the student loan books in a,
Well,
pit.
they don't even know. Back then, you'd had payment books where it was
Yeah.
like a bill. You had to send in a ticket every time you paid.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I put the lighter fluid on it and I threw a match on it and those sons of bitches didn't burn.
No,
Okay.
why? Because they were fireproof. You had no excuse but to pay them.
I'm not even making that up. The pages had some coating on them that would not
I
let them
know.
burn.
I think we had to use propane or
No,
something. I don't know. Somehow we blew them up.
a blowtorch. I used a torch.
Torch,
That's what
yes.
I ended up using.
We had a payment book bonfire because we paid those bad boys off.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So since then we restarted our own coaching business. It really took off. It's never really slowed down. We said we were going to write a book. People kept on saying, write a book, write a book, write a book. So we wrote a book and guess what? The book became one of the best selling real estate books, books for real estate agents in the history of real estate. I think there's only one that has sold as many copies, and that's Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And it's still for sale. Barnes and Noble, the book's 5 years old, 6 years old. It's for, available everywhere. Get it Barnes and Noble and whatever. But yeah, Harris Rules. And it encapsulates in great detail all the things that we've shared with you, but it gets into scripts and systems and schedules and all the rest of it. The coaching business continued to scale. We ebbed and flowed with where the market wanted us to go. We decided to join EXP. It was 2018. And, guess what? We had a whole ton of momentum because it was earned influence from all of our years in the real estate business. And we quickly became the number one recruiters at EXP Realty. And so we have now thousands of people in the RXP Realty Group. We've had hundreds of thousands in our coaching business. We've had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people buy our book and buy the audio book and listen to all these things. Our podcast, we do the podcast every single day. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to impress upon you. Okay. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to press upon you. Let me say the podcast. Our podcast has had over 20 million downloads. Our podcast is the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in the United States. It's had tens of thousands. We've done tens of thousands of these podcasts every single day. We were doing podcasts before anybody knew what a podcast was. I'm trying to press upon you the repetitious boredom pays off, and it takes longer than you think to build momentum. We were doing the podcast when we were getting no downloads. We kept on doing it. We were writing the book when we didn't know if anybody was going to buy it, let alone it wouldn't be, would become the success that it had. We quit viable sources of predictable, duplicatable income because we had, the faith and confidence that we could make it work. Because we knew within ourselves that we were on a mission, and the mission was always to be of service to other people. We never wanted to be famous. And, we get recognized here and there, but it's not something that we seek. And this is something that confuses people. And I want you guys to internalize this question. Ask yourself, if you have to choose, because you do, between being rich and being famous, which are you going to choose? You can't have both. Because in the markets, the hard Britain stars were all famous. Everyone knew who they were, but they weren't rich because they had no income. A lot of the influencers and the people that you're watching on TV or on YouTube, they're not rich. They have the appearance of being rich. The people that are teaching you to do real estate, that are called themselves real estate coaches, they're not rich. They're imposters teaching you to be an imposter. So if you pursue being famous, you can buy fame, but you can't buy rich, because in order to be rich, you actually have to be of service to a lot of other people, and you have to earn the right to be of service to a lot of other people. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of repetitious boredom. It takes building momentum. Everything that you want in life takes at least 3 or 5 times longer than you think it should, or you think it would based on what you see on Instagram. So I'm grateful for all of you who have been part of our lives and allowed us to be in alignment with our highest and truest purpose, which is being of service to all of you. We had a couple, side tracks along the way, but for the most part, we've always kept that as our true North Star. Julie and I's highest and truest purpose on planet Earth, as in the real estate space, professionally, not personally, professionally, they are separate, is to be of service to all of you, to make your lives better, to make your lives easier, to give you education, give you motivation, to give you the courage and really the strength to get into action. That is what we do. That is what we don't want to be famous for it. We want the results of what you get from what you hopefully learn from us. That's what we want to be famous. We don't want us to be famous. We want the results that we got as a result of our effort. That's if we wanted to be famous, that's what we want to be famous. Oh, I don't know who Tim and Julie are, but I'm in Premier Coaching. It's amazing. I just use this pre-listing pack though as part of Ethical Real Estate Professional. Is amazing. I think I know who Tim and Julie are. That is fine with us.
Yep.
What do you think of Jules?
Well, it's been a lot of interesting things that all go into everything that we teach. When we learn something new in the market, there's been a lot of different changes. We integrate that into your coaching. To your point, we're not looking to be famous. And you shouldn't either. It's the work that you do. It's the impact that you have. It's the people that you help. And then that's what results in you having the income that you desire and all of the goals that you're setting that we're helping you to reach. So I think, that we could go on. We have many, many different stories throughout the years. One day I talk to coaching clients sometimes because we always play top that story of the week because they've gone through so many crazy things. And we used to, that I'm going to write a book like Chicken Soup for the Realtor's Soul, with all of these crazy stories. But we go through that with you guys together. And, you have some hard days out there sometimes. I hope that you're able to turn on this podcast and find that North Star and find that motivation, that education, the motivation, so that you can get into action, so you can be the leader. That's what we desire for you.
Let's give them the best news ever, okay?
What's that?
Julie and I, with zero shadow of doubt at this point, are 100% positive. We were 90% positive before, 100% positive. We're the industry, the real estate industry, our country is about to experience the biggest real estate boom of all of our lifetimes, and maybe the history of the United
For
States,
sure.
for sure.
I agree.
There,
I agree
there,
100% sure.
there's going to be such a massive surge of everything positive behind housing. And it's not just our mindset. We're not just trying to, we're dealing with facts. We're dealing with what we see coming out of the Trump administration. We're seeing what's happening with demographics. We're paying attention to interest rates. We're paying attention to inventory. We're paying attention to all the important things. We're not just being hopeful. We're using facts. We're optimistic, but we're cautiously optimistic about everything, right? And I'm here to tell you that I'm removing the cautious and even the optimistic, and I'm moving to positive. We are, all of us collectively are in the right place at the right time. You have to realize that your best days of your life, we've been married for 34 years. We got married when we were 20 and 21. We are not spring chickens. Okay. But we are positive. The best years of our lives are still ahead of us. And we want to share them with you. And we want you to share your best years with us. Nothing would make me happier, and this is professionally and personally, to walk that path forward with all of you. And nothing, I have to tell you, when Julie and I get a nice comment, Julie mentioned some of them, something where it's one thing to say, I want a listing, but it's another thing for people to say, I was able to create financial independence. I was able to pay for my kids' college. I was able to pay for this, that, or the other thing, contribute money to my church. I had somebody that started a church, things like that. That is what really makes us positive and affirming that we're on the right path, which is being in alignment with our highest and truest purpose. So look, many of you, literally millions of you, have discovered Julie and I over the years and have made you part of our lives, and you're part of our lives. Thank you. We're massively grateful for it. You have made our 34 years of marriage, something. Our building of our businesses has been for us, obviously, as entrepreneurs and business owners, but they've been because of you. That's why we've done it. If you didn't like our jib jab, if you didn't like our vibe, if you didn't like our message, if you didn't like our characters, if you didn't like our perspectives on life, we wouldn't have been able to do this, but you have. And you've given us permission to become the highest versions of ourselves. And we're just getting started. Hopefully all of you feel the same way. And you're smiling because what are you thinking, Jules?
Well, I was just thinking about, you and I have been talking about, we've had these like segments in our lives and we walked them through some of that I, like you, am looking forward to the next segment as well.
Yeah, me too. And I promise you guys, our next segment is going to include you. We're not planning on burning
Of
any bridges, so
course.
don't worry about it.
No, they'll
So
be right here with us.
you guys have a fantastic day. Literally thousands and thousands of podcasts you can watch and view. If you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. You know the jib jab. You guys have heard it a million times. But again, thank you for all your happy anniversary wishes over on Instagram and other places. Really wonderful for you to think of us. But I'm here to tell you that what we're celebrating is, yes, 34 years of happy health and love. But what we're celebrating professionally is the fact that, we're walking this path. All of us, thousands of us are walking this path together. And that to me gives me an almost overwhelming sense of gratitude. So God bless all of you. And thank you for listening to the show. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on pod when we get back to normal programming tomorrow. Thank you, Julie. God bless you. I love you, sweetie.
You too. I love you too.
Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video. And remember to watch the next one. You're going to love that one.